Back, and this is part 2 of one law. We're going to start off in Exodus chapter 7, and I'm going to read a couple verses to you in support of one law. And my point is that this one law applies to all mankind. Even before the law was given to Israel at the foot of Mount Sinai, God was exhibiting his distaste based on his law for the gods of Pharaoh, of Egypt rather. And so I'm going to start in chapter 7, Exodus chapter 7, verse 1. And the Lord said unto Moses, See, I have made thee a god to Pharaoh, and Aaron thy brother shall be thy prophet. Thou shalt speak all that I command thee, and Aaron thy brother shall speak unto Pharaoh, and he send the children of Israel, out of his land. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, and multiply my signs and my wonders in the land of Egypt. But Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that I may lay my hand upon Egypt, and bring forth mine armies, and my people, the children of Israel, out of the land of Egypt by great judgments. And the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I stretch forth my hand upon Egypt, and bring out the children of Israel from among them. And Moses and Aaron did as the Lord commanded them, so they did. And Moses was 80 years old, and Aaron 83 years old, when they spake unto Pharaoh. And the Lord spake unto Moses and unto Aaron, saying, When Pharaoh shall speak unto you, saying, Show a miracle for you, then thou shalt say unto Aaron, Take thy rod and cast it before Pharaoh, and it shall become a serpent. And Moses and Aaron went in unto Pharaoh, and they did so as the Lord had commanded. And Aaron cast down his rod before Pharaoh and before his servants, and it became a serpent. Then Pharaoh also called the wise men and the sorcerers, now the magicians of Egypt. They also did like manner with their enchantments. For they cast down every man his rod, and they became serpents. But Aaron's rod swallowed up their rods. And he hardened Pharaoh's heart, that he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh's heart is hardened, he refuseth to let the people go. Get thee unto Pharaoh in the morning. Lo, he goeth out unto the water, and thou shalt stand by the river's brink against he come. And the rod which was turned to a serpent shalt thou take in thy hand. And thou shalt say unto him, The Lord God of the Hebrews hath sent me unto thee, saying, Let my people go, that they may serve me in the wilderness. And behold, hitherto thou wouldest not hear. Thus saith the Lord, in this thou shalt know that I am the Lord. Behold, I will smite with the rod that is in mine hand upon the waters which are in the river, and they shall be turned to blood. So that's the first plague, water turned to blood, of the 10 plagues of Egypt. My point for one law, part 2 of this one law, is that even though Pharaoh was not a believer, he had his own group of gods. God applied his law established from the foundation of the world before man was even created. These laws were in place, and these laws apply. And the 10 plagues of Egypt is just an example of that, because we're going to talk about what Egyptian gods that these plagues destroyed. God, the Father in heaven, literally destroyed in the minds and the hearts. He destroyed a culture, a religious, institution within the land of Egypt against the pharaohs, all the pharaohs before and all the Egyptian pharaohs, Egyptians after, prime ministers, kings, whatever. He utterly destroyed them, and he destroyed them based on this premise. Exodus 22 through 3. On this first commandment, thou shalt have no other gods before me. So water turned to plague was the uh, first of 10 plagues. Water turned to blood was the first of 10 plagues of Egypt, right? And so let's talk about which Egyptian gods were insulted by this. So not only insulted, but it destroyed a faith system that had been in rulership. Egypt ruled the world. They were the Egyptians, the mighty Egyptians, right? And they were just, their faith system, the religious system was decimated by these 10 plagues. And it was on purpose, based on the well-established law that was prior to being given to Israel at the foot of Mount Sinai. He, Lord God, Father of God, of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, destroyed these Egyptian gods. He destroyed a whole religious, cultural institution. He destroyed it, and it was based on, thou shalt have no other gods before me. That law was in place from the foundations of the world. Okay, and this is who. So, which Egyptian gods were insulted by this? Khnum, guardian of the Nile; Hapi, spirit of the Nile; Orisis, god of the underworld, and probably other ones as well. And the second plague, the plague of frogs. Which Egyptian's god were insulted by this? Heqt, Heqt, Heqt. This one is associated with the fertility of childbirth. Because in Egypt you couldn't kill a frog, because they believed that frogs were like gods or whatever, and so that it destroyed the gods of fertility and childbirth. So those were, they were on a pedestal because it furthered the genetic makeup of Egyptians. So frogs, you didn't kill frogs, right? You didn't kill frogs. Okay. The third one was the plague of gnats or lice. Okay. And so which gods that it utterly destroyed in the mind of the Egyptians. And this one was the Seth. This was the earth god, Seth. And I'm going to put these. There's several links I have. I only printed out one, but there's several links I have that talks about the 10 plagues on Egypt and which of the Egyptian gods that it decimated, or it insulted, or it decimated their gods. These gods that they had, right? Because the God of the Hebrew, the God of Israel, came and just decimated them. And it was an awesome display of from the Father, that He created all things. Okay, that this was His world, and He was God. He was number one. He is God. So it's just amazing. So that was the plague of flies. And the Egyptian god was Hathor, Hathor. A god is represented by a cow. You see those statues of the man body, and then they have like a cow head. That was one of the Egyptian gods that was destroyed with the flies. Then there was the fifth plague, which was the plague against the livestock. And the god of Memphis, the Ptah, is what it's called, or Hathor. The god's represented by the cow, the same one. So those are two gods, but there are probably other ones. But these is just an examples of how these particular gods of Egypt were destroyed or insulted, but they were actually destroyed in the minds of a whole culture. They were decimated. Okay, never to be a great power again. They were decimated. So and the next one was the plague of boils. they repeated again. It was like any god that represented by an animal. I think I have another one. I don't have it printed out though. But that was another god. Hathor was another god. The plague of hail. This actually, it killed all the vegetation and all that stuff. And Seth was an earth god, and Nut, N-U-T, the sky goddess. Serapis, the god of fire and water. And it's probably other gods too, but those were the three main gods. And then the eighth one was the plague of locusts, and that was Isis, the goddess of life, Seth, an earth god, and then I'm pretty sure there are other gods too. For those of you that are in my age group, the old mighty Isis, remember that show they used to have on? So yeah, it was an Egyptian god. And then the ninth plague, the plague of darkness, Re, or Amun, the sun god and chief deity of Thebes. Those the sun gods, because they were sun worshippers too. So yeah, that god, Re or Amun, the sun god of chief deity of Thebes, was also insulted by this. Okay, and then the death of the firstborn was like, because Pharaoh was like, considered divine. So the death of the firstborn was an insult to Pharaoh. It was a personal insult to Pharaoh, that the firstborn would die. Pharaoh, that was because Pharaoh was the god of Egypt. Okay, he was the high god, the king, right? And that particular, he was the god that was decimated with the death of the firstborn. So even though, back to my point, even though this heathen Gentile nation called Egypt, were not Israel. They were not sojourners with Israel. They were heathens, Gentile. Even though they were, they had their own belief system, their own culture, their own religious institutions, and they had their set of gods that they worshipped, right? The law still applied. And God, with his mighty hand, came in there and got his children out, got Israel out, and he destroyed their gods. Their water, their agriculture, their livestock. He brought disease and pestilence upon them. He brought, he destroyed. Let me make sure I say this right. He destroyed Pharaoh, who was divine. It is that, the death of the firstborn, and he set a clear division in concrete, steel, stone, whatever you want to call it, a clear division between the Egyptians and Israel, because the first 9 plagues, they did not affect the slaves. They did not affect Israel. Okay? In the land of Goshen, they were not affected wherever they were. They were not affected. Except if they weren't obedient and put the lamb's blood on the lintel and doorposts, so that the angel of death would pass over. And that's where we get the high holy day, the Passover. So clear delineation between those who are Israel by birth, who are spiritual Israel, and those that refuse to adhere to the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High, who refuse, okay, to acknowledge Yeshua HaMashiach. Okay, so whether you believe or you don't believe, you will be judged according to the law. Okay, so with that said, Israel and those others that are listening, I thank you for tuning in. And I will post probably, let's see, I think I said there's going to be one law, and then I was going to do confusion of faces. Also have a couple other teachings I'm going to put, probably be the Sabbath teaching, the Sabbath day teachings, the weekly Sabbath. And I think that's it for now. So we know we have confusion of face coming up. We know we have the Sabbath coming up. We also have Psalm 54 coming up, but I'll let the Holy Spirit of God lead me. But this was the first one, and I appreciate you guys tuning in. And I want you to come back, Israel. And those that are considering coming into the camp, those that are considering accepting Yeshua HaMashiach and living by the law, statutes, commandments of God, those that acknowledge that because Christ came, he did not do away with any of God's well-established laws. As you know, they were established from the foundation of the earth. They apply to all mankind. And we can go into more teaching on that if you like. So I'd like for you to comment below. I want you to like it if you like it. Tell everybody you know. So that everybody else can be blessed by this as well. So Israel, on that note, I want to say God bless you and shalom.